Hello and welcome to day 96 in our journey through the Word. Just 4 days away from hitting the 100-day mark in our journey. And today we finish our reading in the book of Judges. And I was looking, we start tomorrow in the book of Ruth. It's been interesting how quickly we've moved through the different books of the Old Testament, and we will start seeing very quickly in the days ahead how we're reading in multiple books and multiple chapters at the same time in our daily reading. And it'll be interesting how those events seem to tie together. Today's reading was disturbing. We saw the Levite who had found his concubine, and I want to go back up. I really wanted to look that word up. I really had always understood that to be a large number of women, and it can be, but the dictionary describes that as a second wife, a secondary wife, and there can be many of those back in these times. And so as we see that she is brutally raped by a bunch of men. But I thought it was interesting that if you recall back that these men, these evil men, are banging on the door demanding the same type of sexual relationship with the man as we saw early on back in Genesis and Sodom, where the angels were there and the men beat on the door wanting to have sex with them. We have the same thing here, but this time the Levite throws out his concubine, and she's brutally raped to the point of death. And he goes back and cuts her up and sends parts of her to the different tribes, that thus stirring the battle that we see in today's reading, where they come to battle against their brother Benjamin. And there's three particular parts of that battle I want to just draw attention to. The first one was out of chapter 20, specifically verse 18, where God says Judah is to go first. Now, I spent some time looking at the commentary, and they said that you notice that they didn't ask whether they should go to war or not, or whether or not, basically, whether they should go to war with their brethren, with their brothers from the tribe of Benjamin. They felt confident that they were justified because of the brutality of the crime, that they needed to rid that community of these evil men. They did not inquire whether they should go, and if they should go, if they would be victorious. They didn't ask God, "Will we be victorious?" They were counting on their numbers, their sheer numbers, and they had a large amount of men. At one point in the reading today, it talked of over 400,000 men. And when we see that the Benjaminites only had, when they finally came into battle, only had 25,000, about 25,400 men. So they didn't have, that's a lot of men, but compared to the rest of Israel, we see that was not. But Israel first depended on their own strength. And we see in the first battle that the clan of Benjamin beats them down. And we see that there were over 20,000 men killed in that first battle, that first day. Men from Israel, not men from the tribe of Benjamin. In the second battle, God says in verse 23, go out and fight against them. So this time, they're pretty beaten down. They've lost a lot of men, and they're pretty beaten down, and now they're asking God, should we even go back and fight? They're discouraged, and God says, go back and fight again. But again, Israel doesn't ask God if they're going to be victorious. They're still counting on their sheer numbers, Their numbers alone should have just walked right in and destroyed the clan of Benjamin. But again in battle, the second battle, we see that over 18,000 men from Israel were killed by the clan of Benjamin. They were depending on their numbers and the justice and the justness of their cause. God did not promise victory. He just provided an answer to their question. And their question, should we go fight again? And his answer was yes. They didn't ask God for victory. God didn't tell them they would have victory. So yet we see them before him a third time, yet beaten down and discouraged. And they ask again of God. And God says, go. Tomorrow I will hand them over to you. And we see that in battle and the cleverness of how they set the ambush on the clan of Benjamin. But God this time in 2028 says, go. Tomorrow I will hand them over to you. They did not only desire to know whether it was God's will, they wanted to know if they should fight again. And since Benjamin was their brother, or through the lineage was part of their family, they wanted to make sure that what they were doing was right. But it took them a great loss before we saw them come to God and not only ask if they should fight, but if God would fight, go with them, and if they would be victorious. And God says yes. He says, go up, for tomorrow I will deliver them over to you. Now they are not only directed to go to battle, but they were promised victory. God promises that to us as well. Before we move forward, we must seek God's will. We must ask God, not only should we, but will he go with us in that, in those questions. It's not only, God, should we do this, but God, will you go with me? Will you bless me? Will I be victorious through this? And if we're not asking both questions, we may get exactly what happened here. God may tell us to go, but we may be beaten down by the enemy. We've got to remember to stop and say, God, please, if this is your will for me to go, and you tell me to go, will you go with me as well? God, that even when I'm beaten down by men, there's still victory with him. We need to remember that promise from God. I look forward to tomorrow as we begin our reading in Ruth, a whole new book, and again, just starting to see how the chronological part of the Bible will continue to move us forward. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you again tomorrow as we continue our journey through the Word.